Hey, everybody, it is Trags Mike Petralia once again with the JungleRoar podcast, season 2, episode number 4. And I welcome back good friend from Bengals.com, the one and only Geoff Butch Hobson. How you doing, Butchie?
Now, much better now that I'm on with you, Trags. Good to be back in town and good to be back on the man's podcast. I appreciate it.
By the way, before we record it, I just want to get this out of the way. Final Four, baby. Final Four.
Congratulations. I go back a little bit to one of the greatest games I ever saw was a Leo Routen's tip in at the buzzer in the third overtime.
I know that. Dome. Yep. 1980, the first Big East championship, if I recall.
Right. 1981, triple overtime at the Dome, the year before they went to Madison Square Garden.
Oh, that's right.
I tell you what, Nova has quietly slipped that in. I guess it's because, I guess the Big East, unfortunately, has slipped in stature because I guess we're all, I'm obviously, I go back to the 80s and 90s.
Right.
With the Big East, and there was nothing bigger than the Big East in the 80s and 90s. The players they churned out and the national championships they churned out in Final Fours. But what Jay Wright has done there is been
he's made us proud. And he's, it's ironic. It would be incredibly appropriate if he faces off against Coach K in the national championship, which is a distinct possibility if, Nova beats Kansas and Coach K takes care of Carolina, which I think they will. Villanova has been called Duke North because Jay Wright has done a lot of the things at Villanova that Mike Krzyzewski has done down in Durham. And it's pretty impressive what Villanova's done. And I'm a very proud 1988 alumnus. So I wanted to get that out of the way. Yeah. Now we are going to get to the business at hand and why I'm having you on. This is, I think, a very appropriate time to have you on, Geoff, to talk about the NFL spring meetings that just concluded in West Palm Beach, Florida, at the Breakers Resort. And you, I thought, did a fabulous job really breaking down some of the words that Katie Blackburn, Mike Brown's daughter, had to say in terms of representing the organization, what was able to be accomplished, and getting her thoughts moving forward on a number of different items. Your pieces on Bengals.com. And I want to start with a place that I think a lot of people, in terms of the news, really want a beat on, and that is the talks with Jessie Bates and where they stand here in this particular offseason.
Frank, yeah, thanks for that. And I'm always amazed that they let me into the Breakers, but they do. And I the thing with Bates is I think it's really I'm not sure there's been any news really that's new. He talked, they almost got a deal done. Almost. I don't know how close that came before training camp. I think they tried to get something done. That was reported that Katie had met with his agents up in Indianapolis just a week before the tag went out. So they've tried to get something done. It hasn't happened. They want to get it done, and but if they have to play on the tag, they'll do that. They don't want to do that. They obviously want to wrap him up. But I think it's, as always, safeties are it's all about value, right? How do you value these guys? Right. To me, it's tough because Jesse's he's a leader in that room. He's a big reason why I think they got off to the start they did, because he was at the hub of getting their off-season workouts together last year.
That's a great point. Yes, he was. And, when this is about numbers, right? Let's be honest. This is about, can David Mulugheta of Athletes First, his agent, get the numbers for Jessie that he feels Bates at only 25 years of age. And that is so critical to understand in these talks, that because of Bates's age, I think Mulugheta is going to insist that Bates's value is intrinsically higher than it would normally be for, let's say, a 29-year-old Harrison Smith or a 30-year-old Tyrann Mathieu. You're buying for the future. You're not paying necessarily for past performance. You've got a guy entering his prime, and I think that is going to come at prime dollars. You go ahead.
Yeah, I know. I think you're exactly right. I mean, it's he's certainly not, the agent certainly isn't looking at this year at free agency, at what the safeties got in free agency this
No,
time around.
last year was really when the market, I thought, was set.
Right. You know, and I think too, but now we're not in a vacuum anymore. We're not in a vacuum. And you're right about the age of 25. It's why Jessie came out. I think Jessie, such a smart guy, and he had good people advising him. He looked at the same. I mean, he came out. The reason he came out wasn't because really so much because of his draft position in 2018. It was this second contract, because he knew he was going to be young, and he knew that he was one of the best safeties in that class. So none of this is a coincidence. Jessie set himself up very well. The thing that the Bengals, obviously, now, as we know, there's not only an elephant in the room, there's a herd in the room.
Yes.
Burrow, Higgins, Chase. I mean, to me, that's the thing that has come out of this. And Dan Horde talked about this, he and I, in his podcast. The thing that jumps out you about this free agency is the price of the wide receivers. You know, and the Bengals have two of the best young wide receivers in the game. Can you keep two? Can you keep two with Burrow? Where does the safety fit into that? Granted, a valuable team leader that the locker room wants and needs. These are all things I'm not sure there is not a you can't check a box and say, yep, you know, all of these things have to be debated and crunched.
Okay, I want to break down the top three safeties and what they got last year. 27 years of age, Jamal Adams with the Seahawks, $70 million, $17.5 million a year. Total guaranteed was $38 million, fully guaranteed $21 million. Harrison Smith, he's 33. He got $64 million over 4 years, breaks out obviously to $16 million a year. He only got fully guaranteed $14.1 million. And in Justin Simmons, 29, he's 29 years of age, out of Boston College. I covered him when he was at the Heights, by the way. He got $61 million, 15.25 per year, and 32.1 fully guaranteed. The reason I bring those numbers up is for the age and the fully guaranteed numbers, they vary wildly. And I think, you know, something that you alluded to in your story on Bengals.com, Troy and Katie Blackburn have done a great job over the years of understanding the cap and understanding how to manipulate it so that the Bengals are in the best position going forward for the Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase deals. You agree?
Oh, no, there's no question. I mean, if you look at to me, the Collins deal is the quintessential Bengals deal. They, the way they broke it up, the way they had the ascending, you know, cap numbers that didn't blow you out of the water. The way they spread out the money, the way they tied it to, you know, the way they tied it to playtime.
Yep.
I mean, that's how you don't get in trouble. You know, you don't get in trouble that way. Now, it's obviously that's tough negotiating because, you know, the agents want the guaranteed money. They want the money right on the table, and I don't think the Bengals mind paying that money. It's just if something happens that they get caught with dead money. But that's obviously, you know, that's part of the game. It's why we're here juggling stuff. Really, there's no guaranteed money in football. I'm not sure, despite the Deshaun Watson contract, I'm not sure there's going to be. But you know, their challenge is this is clearly the toughest challenge I think that they've had cap wise. Of, you know, and it always is when you have a good team. I mean,
it's a great problem to have. I mean,
yeah,
and they would prefer to have this problem with a full stadium than trying to generate interest with a franchise that is stuck in mediocrity, and you don't, nobody wants that. But some NFL teams are stuck with that, and they wait and wait and wait to get the quarterback right. The Bengals have the quarterback right; they know they do. Now they're trying to build all the pieces around it.
And some with safeties, it's like every safety's different, really. You know what I mean? It's kind of a to me, it's a position that's kind of evolving. It's becoming more important, more and more important, I think. But Bates isn't the same player as Adams, and
No.
he's not the same player as Smith. And I would hesitate to just pigeonhole him as a center fielder. He's more than that, Jesse. But does he have Adams's versatility? Probably not. But I mean, he's got a lot of other things, intangibles.
Look, I keep coming back to his age. To me, that's the biggest intangible, or maybe it's tangible.
Right. But it's like you said about the value. What is the value? Is the value 55 million? Is it 70? Where is it? And I guess it comes down to what the player thinks is value.
Well, and I'll tell you, it comes down to, the value comes down to what the agent can live with. And if the agent can't live with it, then the Bengals have to make the decision, and they are fully capable of doing this. They have one more year after this, right, Jeff, that they can put the franchise tag on him. They can put it on him in the 2023 season as well, and then wish him best of luck in 2024. I mean, that is a possibility that the Bengals and Bates are looking at. And while it appears, Bates is a very young player, and he is 25. He's got to make a business decision for himself, knowing that, they are offering me 4 years, let's say, just ballpark, 4 years, $64 million. And they offer me that 16 million a year AAV number right in between. And they give them a fair, reasonable number in terms of guaranteed money, somewhere around 30 million. And if he gets that on the table, I can't see him turning that down. I really can't.
He might have already had it on the table. I mean, we don't know what was on.
We don't know the numbers.
I guess we figure. I guess the conventional wisdom is that 16 wasn't on the table. I guess.
No, and I think had it been, he probably, I think Mulugeta would have probably taken that. Again, it really comes down, Jeff, to how Jesse and his agent want to play this, and how much say. Do you have any idea? Do you have any feel for how much say Jesse has with Mulugeta in this?
No, I don't. I don't. And it's hard because we haven't been in the room. And it's hard to. It's hard. That's kind of something.
To me, the biggest wild card, Butch, is that you don't know what their attitude is in all of this.
And it's we've talked to Jesse enough. I mean, I think he likes the town. I think he likes being close to home. I think he likes the team. I think all this is real. You know what I mean? But I also think he believes he's a top safety. So I think there's so many not different. There's two things going at it. What outweighs the money? But I don't think Jesse sees it as money. I think he sees it as, his standing in the league.
And certainly there is a scorecard. I mean, let's be honest. The players do keep scorecards, but with Jesse, I think it matters to him. And you just alluded to this, being on a young team that's up and coming in the National Football League, those opportunities, that perfect storm of being a young player on an up and coming team with a franchise superstar quarterback, those don't come along often. And to me, that still has to play in Jesse's way of thinking of what a reasonable offer would be to keep him in Cincinnati.
Yeah. I mean, at some point, these guys, they say, well, look, if I'm going to, I might, if these guys are trying to keep Burrow and Chase and Higgins, maybe I got to take a little less, maybe I got to make him help fit it. I don't know. I don't know how that, how do those, how does exactly that work? You know, what, I don't know what I'd do. You know what I mean? I put myself in that situation, and I'm
I
not
would
sure.
want to, I'll tell you what I would do. I would want to be in the place where I earn, enough money for my grandkids. Okay. And that is going to life-changing money, as they call it. But I would want to be in a place where I can compete for championships.
Yeah.
All things being equal. Let's move on. I want to talk about Katie overseeing, and she addressed this a little bit, I believe, on Wednesday, overseeing the day-to-day business pretty much for the last decade, as you write, a decade and a half. But she consults daily with her father. She had to smile when she was asked about his statement of a few years back that he was going to step back because he still has the final say and sits in on all the football meetings. And her quote on Wednesday was, he said that for 25 years, he is involved. He's down at the stadium every day. We keep him involved in everything. He gets his input on everything, but the rest of us are out there doing more and more reporting back to him rather than him doing and reporting to us. So I guess the point here is Mike did not make the trip to the Breakers. Katie took more of, obviously, a public facing stance, addressing the reporters on the news of the organization. And my question for you is, are we going to see more and more of this from Katie?
I don't, yeah, I think so, just because I think, she's, I think Mike is, not that he's slowing down, but I think he wants Katie to get, more comfortable, I think, with getting out there. But I mean, like I said, I don't think much has changed. I think, I think Mike not being there is really not that big of a deal. I mean,
and he's fine. As you pointed out.
He's fine. And I'm sure they talked a couple times a day. I'm sure they talked a couple times a day, probably down there, so they talk a lot. So I'm not sure anything is really any different than it was in 2011 or 2012. I mean, really, I just think, I think it's always kind of jarring when you don't see Mike at that point talking. But I don't think it's really, it's kind of I think it's business. I think it's business as usual. And I think we just don't hear. And that's kind of the point I tried about. I wrote a story on Sunday, and I
was going to get to that. As a matter of fact, I'm glad you brought it up. Go ahead.
Yeah, but she's so low profile. She doesn't like attention. She doesn't like to be in the limelight. So I think whenever she's in there, people scramble to make it, I think, bigger than it is. You know what I mean? But I think to me, it's business as usual. I think, I think they have a lot of voices. I think Elizabeth Blackburn, her daughter, has been, very effective, speaking, and Katie, and I think Troy at times also speaks. So this is the way they like to do it. They don't really, it's not a focus really on one person. Duke Tobin talks a lot about when he talks about the draft and free agency and personnel, and that's the way they like to do it. They like to make it a team effort. I think the Collins deal is a prime example of how they do business. Steve Radicevic, the director of pro scouting, is the point man in free agency. I think Duke Tobin did the director of player personnel, did a lot of the heavy lifting in the negotiations with Peter Schaefer, Collins' agent. They go way back. They have a good relationship. And I think behind the scenes, Katie and Troy are crunching the numbers. Throwing out, consulting, getting not only consulting, but I think during that weekend they weren't only, going over the Collins deal. There were other deals, ahead that they were thinking about and trying to move and push numbers. So I think they've always, and this is the way Mike has always wanted it too. Is he's always he likes a kind of a he kind of likes a open and kind of an he's not a guy big into organizational structure. He likes to have different people doing. He likes different people doing having a lot of responsibility and he doesn't like to constrain them, and he likes to get their, he likes to get their feedback. That, he doesn't want to, put straitjackets on them. So I thought that was, and then I'm sure they ran the final, probably ran the final. I don't even know if they got the final go ahead from Mike. I'm sure he, I think at this point it was, Katie knew the numbers. Katie and Duke knew the numbers, got it. And, I'm sure Mike was fine with the concept of let's go get a right tackle and don't blow up the cap. I'm sure that was his charge.
Speaking with Geoff Hobson, doing a great job covering the Cincinnati Bengals for Bengals.com. You can follow him on Twitter. What's your Twitter handle again? I want to get it right.
It's Geoff, since I'm rarely on there, Trags, of course you wouldn't know it. It is Geoff Hobson, HOBSINCIN.
Another story that came out of the NFL spring meetings down in Palm Beach, and that is the long anticipated construction of a practice facility, indoor practice facility for the Cincinnati Bengals. And what I found interesting from Katie was in her comments on Wednesday was is not about recruiting necessarily players in free agency and whatnot and make it a draw, because people aren't going to come to an organization because they have a bubble. They're going to come because they're getting paid and they're playing for a competitive team. But the reason the Bengals want that bubble is they anticipate playing more and more, hopefully in January and into February, and they want a facility and they don't want to have to go up to UC to do so.
I just think it's very, I think it's a pragmatic approach to it. Actually, I thought the weather was
reasonable.
Really, yeah, I mean, it didn't get bad until they had to get ready to go to Los Angeles. You know what I mean? And but it's they went up to UC and they got work in there. And but really before that, I think they were probably in when they were getting ready to go to Kansas City and getting ready to go to Nashville, it was fairly reasonable. You were out there.
I was, but all things being equal, they got a little bit lucky with the weather.
There's no question about it. And I think that's part of the thinking is, look, if we're going to be playing games on January, and I think this has always been the mantra. They want to get it done. I think there's mechanical issues. I think there's, probably better to talk to engineers than me about that. I think I think they want to do it. I think that's the big thing. To me, it's how and where.
And where. To me, the bigger question is where are they going to?
But I think that's too, and I think it's been driven home. They wanted to get it done before all this happened, but then when it happened, I think obviously it was it's a reminder that how deep you go into a winter now.
If I had to guess, you want my guess? It would be on the west end of the practice facility near the bridge.
Yeah, I think I'm not sure how, like I said, I'm not sure about the engineering, because I think there might have been already a facility if the engineering was okay, I guess. I'm not sure.
Or approved, right? If they could have signed off, right?
Yeah. So I don't know where it's going to. That is a great question about where's it going to go.
We're actively looking at this. Is according to Katie on Wednesday. We're actively looking at some things. It's something we realize would be good for us to have. So we're trying to find out ways. We are considering ways to make that happen. I think that, like you just said, Butch, I think they realize the time has come, and it is time to erect something somewhere that will give them that option should the weather turn inclement. Speaking of new facilities, let's get this. Caught my attention when you spoke about the Bengals have taken note of the Bills planning to build their $1.6 billion new stadium after Monday's deal with New York State. They aren't looking for a new one, you write. And while the PBS lease is coming up for an extension, Katie loves the building and where it is now. It served us really well, she said. So how should Bengal fans read that? Should they sense, yeah, maybe it's in the back of our mind that we need to look 10 years down the road at possibly a new stadium or renovate the current one?
I think what she said, I think the next thing she said after that was, just keeping up with other stadia around the league. I think that's,
Yes, she did say
I
that.
think that's,
Correct.
and like she said, how do you get that done? But I mean, I think the stadium is one of the feathers in the cap of the franchise. I mean, that's somebody got a question for my Hobson's Choice column about putting a retractable roof on it. And first of all, that would be, I think, cost prohibitive. But why would you want to put a roof on that thing? I mean, I think that's one of the great things about the stadium is, well, I know why you'd want to put a roof on it. I get it. But I mean, but that's one of the great things about the stadium is I think is how you have the river on one side and the downtown on the
Absolutely
left.
agree.
And I think that's, so I just think it's in a beautiful spot. I also think, it's I think it's I think it's an anchor for the riverfront. I mean, I think it's you got to look at what's come after it. To me, in my mind, I mean, I think you get the, and I told another guy this who, I mean, I did cover the first lease in '97 when I was at the Inquirer.
Sure.
And I got to tell you, I don't think anybody saw a Banks or an Over the Rhine, on the way in 1997. Right. You know what I mean? So I think it's the venue's terrific, and it's and I really think that the game day experience that Elizabeth and her crew, Seth Tanner, added, I mean, it's been staggering, really, if you see how they've changed that operation. So I just think there's a lot of momentum, to keep this thing riding. And if they can, I don't know what's going to, I'm sure, as I also told the guy in the answer, to me, it seems a lot less contentious than it was in '97.
I would agree with that. And you could really tell, Butch, that there was one of the biggest takeaways that I had from this past Bengals season was that there was a communal joining that the Bengals were part of, that the community came around and rallied around the team. And I know that's happened before in other successful seasons. This felt a lot different. This felt like this is what we have been waiting decades for, and we're ready. The city was ripe to have this happen and embrace the franchise because, and I wrote this several times throughout the season, because I think this Bengal front office, Katie, obviously, but also Caroline, and as you mentioned, Elizabeth, they reached out to the public. And that to me this season mattered. Starting with the Ring of Honor, obviously, and you mentioned we're going to get a little bit more Ring of Honor activities this coming season in 2022. But I think the franchise just did a much better job reaching out to the community, and the community in kind, when the team was successful and made it to the Super Bowl, really expressed its passion and its support. That to me is what stood out.
Well, you know this because you're one of them. I mean, if there's a more devout or resilient fan base in the league, I don't know where it is.
I've said that, and I covered the Patriots, as people know, and people watching this and people who follow me on Twitter, they know very well. I covered the Patriots for 27 years. And that fan base also suffered for a long time. And early in their dynasty run, Patriots 1.0, they really rallied around the Patriots. And it was a seismic shift from the Red Sox to the Patriots. And you obviously you grew up in New England, Butch, and you understand this and appreciate this. No one would have ever thought that Boston would have become a football town. It was always a baseball town. Cincinnati, for years and years and decades and decades and decades, have always been a baseball town. And the Bengals need to win. Obviously, they need to hoist Vince. But once that happens, you'll see the same type of seismic shift, here in Cincinnati. And that's what's very, very exciting and worth looking forward to.
Two things, I think, a couple things there, Craig. Couldn't agree with you more. I think you can't underestimate the power of social media. That's what's different from the 81 and 88, why I think it was probably more powerful this trip around. you got to look who's in the front office. Okay. Katie Blackburn grew up. She made Super Bowl signs. Okay. For that first Super Bowl team every week, she made signs, her and her friend, made signs, Turk lurks, right on Jerron. I mean,
Yes.
so, uh, you know, uh, we know she cares. Elizabeth Blackburn wept when she found out Jeff Blake wasn't a Bengal. All right. She's got 10 Chad Johnson jerseys, So the front office to me, they get it, because they've lived it. And I also think, people will probably laugh about this because they probably have no idea who the 1967 Red Sox are, but they were the team that changed the perception of New England about the Red Sox. Because before
Yes.
they had never won, they were just
A pennant since 46.
a country club losers, and that's what it
Yes.
was. But even though they didn't win a world championship for another, 37 years, or what was it, after 67, that 67 team came out of nowhere, finished half a game out of last place in 66. Young, exciting, went right down to the end. There could have been a three-way tie for first on the last weekend. There could have been a two-way tie for first on the last day, and they won it by themselves. And the Cardiac Kids, they were called. So, but that transformed the Red Sox in the mind of New England and the generation coming up. And I guess I know this because I was 8 and I was an example of that. But I think the 2021 Bengals are a lot like that. You came out of nowhere. They finished in last place. Every game came down. They were the Cardiac Cats, And look how people look at the Bengals now compared to last year. 1967 to 66 for the Red Sox, 2021 to 2020 for the Bengals. I mean, it was the polar opposites. So I think this 2021 team is, I don't know what happens the rest of the way. God knows. Who knows what happens the rest of the decade? Who knows what happens next year? I guess the only thing we know is they're probably going to open Sunday night, maybe, right? That's the only thing we probably know. But after that, we don't know. But I do know this. I think this team, this 2021 team, changed the chemistry of the way this town looks at this team.
And what else is very, very important? We'll wrap up on this, Butch. They have followed up a Super Bowl run with an obvious expression that we want to get, they want to get back there to the Super Bowl and finish the job with the job they did in free agency, addressing the glaring need on the offensive line, bringing in a new tight end right away. They are in a position now that they can use the draft to perhaps draft a cornerback in the first round, an impact cornerback in the first round at 31. And then move forward and build depth on the roster, and perhaps depth in places where maybe they can't sign all 3 wide receivers. Maybe they have to do something like that.
Right.
And they are in a position.
Maybe they have to take maybe they got to take a receiver at 31. Who knows? I mean, you can't do it probably. You got to go defense. I mean, but I just think that's an interesting. You just set up an interesting scenario. You're looking at salaries. You're looking at depth. You're looking at just. Where do you? I think you got to go defense, but I mean,
I think they have to go corner. I mean, I think it's, to me, it's the one area where
got to draft 2 corners.
And obviously, Jeff, the Bengals could go in a number of different ways with the draft at 31. They could go with a cornerback. I think they should go with a cornerback if Khair Alam is available. Evan McPherson's former teammate at University of Florida, I might add. Anytime to get in a Shooter McPherson reference, I think we should. But anyway, if they can go corner, I think they go corner. But if the best player is available and it's a wide receiver, I wouldn't be shocked to see them go with a wideout.
It's interesting. Those that you just hit the two positions where they really need depth, corner and wide receiver. I think all 3 on both spots they just got the 3 starters, and really not much behind it. So I think I know I kind of like the guy from Baylor, Trags, the corner from Baylor. I don't know. I mean, it might be what is it? Is it Petrie perhaps? Or I'm not sure I get the right name there. But
We can look up, given the power of the internet, Butch,
yeah,
we can always look up the cornerback,
yeah.
and I should know this right off the top of my head, but I don't.
But I agree with you. I'm a big corner guy. It's been 6 years since they took a corner in the first round, and you know this as well as anybody. When they started drafting corners in the first round, and they didn't do it until 2006. And when they did it with Jonathan Joseph, they followed up with Leon Hall. They started going to playoffs, and I don't think that's a coincidence. So I'm big on corners. I wish they would have taken one every 2 years. It was for a while there. It was every 3 years. But remember, it was J. Joe, it was Hall, it was Kirkpatrick, it was Denard, it was Jackson. And before 06, they had never done it. I think the one corner they had drafted in the first round in the entire history of the franchise had been Ricky Dixon, and they played him at safety. So, yeah, I'm a big corner guy. Trags. Also, Zach Taylor's had 3 drafts, never taken a defensive player before the 3rd round. So they're probably due.
I think they are due in that regard, and still look. You did not mean Derek Stingley, did you?
No, sir. He's long gone,
He's
right?
definitely long
Yeah.
gone.
Love that guy. Love talking to him.
But there is the possibility. There is the possibility that the Bengals trade down, right?
Oh, I think, yeah, I would, I don't think that's I mean, I think they take, I think probably the first option is they'll take the best player. And then I think the option right after that, I mean, first of all, everything's on the table. But I think, if they get the 31, and this, if they get the 31 and they think they can get the same kind of guy at 41, but this too, there's going to be a guy at 31 that they're going to have rated. He's going to be like 17 or 18. It's going to be like T when they picked T Higgins at 33. I don't know where he was in that board. He was like 17 or 18. There's going to be a guy, and I think that his grade will be too high probably to pass. So I don't know if they do trade.
By the way, it is Jalen Petrie out of Baylor. He's listed as a safety.
He is, because he played the slot in college, and but maybe I haven't seen him on many corner lists, but they say he's a great locker room guy, and that he's got that versatility though. They got to listen to safety. We know how much Lou Anarumo loves versatility.
We do. Anything else on your mind as you get that final cup of Joe?
I just think with sorry about that. But I think with right. Nova, I got something to say about Nova. There's always a Bengals connection with everything, Trags.
Yes.
And one of Jay Wright's great friends is former Bengals defensive coordinator Paul Gunther. So
I did not know this.
Yeah, I grew up a lot. They've known each other a long time in the Philly area. And if you look close, I bet Paulie G is going to be there somewhere in the Final Four. So, there's always a little bit of a Trags. There's a Bengals connection with everything.
There is.
So,
6 degrees of Bengals.
Keep an eye on Paulie G at this year's Final Four, and good luck to the Cats, man. It's
going to be a tough. I mean, unfortunately, with Justin Moore going down with the torn Achilles against Houston, last 50 seconds against Houston, that's going to be tough. I mean, he's probably their second best player behind Colin Gillespie, and it's going to be tough. But if anybody can pull it off, it's the underdog Cats. That's the way I look at it.
It's hard to be an underdog in that field, right? They're all blue bloods.
They're all blue bloods, but
right. It's hard for I grew up weaned on Western Kentucky and Jacksonville, and those with Addis Gilmore and those Syracuse. Probably one of the reasons I went to Syracuse is because Jimmy Lee hit the shot in '75 in the Eastern Regional. It sent Syracuse to the '75. They were one of those
lost
Cinderellas.
to Louisville, correct?
They lost. They got beat by Kentucky. Kentucky mashed them around pretty good. Mike Phillips, Rick Roby Cats mashed them around pretty well. And it's going to be it's a tough it's a tough Final Four for underdogs. That's for sure. There are certainly no Cinderellas.
That is correct. There are absolutely no Cinderellas in this Final Four, but Villanova is a 4-point dog. So I like Villanova to get by Kansas. I do.
Frags, I'm rooting for Nova because of you.
I appreciate that. Here, V for Villanova, V for victory. With that, he is Butch Hobson. Please do follow him on Twitter. He is a great follow, and follow him on Bengals.com. He's got great stuff up there about Katie Blackburn and her impact as a female executive in the National Football League, and why she has, along with her husband Troy, done a great job of really restructuring the Bengals front office and the image. He's also got some stuff from Katie and her comments on Wednesday as they wrapped up the NFL Spring Meetings 2022 from the Breakers in Palm Beach. He is Geoff Butch Hobson. I'm Mike Petralia. Thanks for watching.